Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us today. We are very excited to be launching our DataCamp special customized tracks for our IoA members. And this is an important part of our offering of training and our dedication to helping you to become far more advanced in your career and to progress to the levels that you would like to progress to. I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go. So I hope I'm sharing my screen with you now. So when we were looking at what we wanted for you, when we were thinking about how do we take you from potentially a complete beginner all the way through to a fully independent leading analyst, there were a lot of things that we had to consider. And so this webinar is going to introduce you to some of our aims and our goals and our hopes for you, and also talk you through how to actually use the track that we are sharing with you. One of the big things that we had as a consideration was that we wanted to make sure that you had a depth of knowledge, because none of these things that we are dealing with are simple. They are quite complex processes. But we also wanted to make sure that you have a breadth of knowledge as well. And we know from looking at people's CVs, for example, that we receive, that often when your training is left solely in the hands of your employer, that you tend to get very deep in one area. So you will be the person in your company who specializes and does, for example, this particular process, that process, and uses this tool and that tool. But very often what is missing is that understanding of the wider possibilities of analytics that are open to you and available to you. And having that broader experience may well give you more opportunities to progress in the future. And so that's what we really wanted to make sure that we gave you. We want you to have a deep enough knowledge that you actually can work with these things incredibly effectively. But we also want to make sure that you've had exposure to and an understanding of many of the wider issues in analytics. And analytics is a vast field with many specializations in it. A second consideration, I think, is that, well, how do we want you to learn? In what ways do we want you to learn? And certainly one of the first levels of learning is knowledge and understanding. Because it is such a vast field, we have a lot that we need you to be aware of in terms of how we collect data, clean data, select data for analytics. What are the various options available to you? Because we have many, many algorithms that you could be using. And so this was also a very important consideration. We know that one of the benefits of focusing on knowledge and understanding is that you're able to dive straight in and work with things like how machines categorize, how they predict, how they classify, how they generate new content or new ideas. And you can be very aware and alerted to performance metrics and some of the known issues with these algorithms. And you can work effectively to be able to interpret them. But there's a massive disadvantage in this. We are dealing with a STEM subject. STEM is the term we use here in the UK for science, technology, engineering, and mathematical subjects. Very much in demand. And I have to be honest, the magic combination is STEM with really good communication skills and soft skills. But like any STEM subject, it's practical. And if you only have a theoretical knowledge, then you're missing out on a huge part of it. If you can imagine trying to learn chemistry and never playing with actual chemicals, or biology and no frogs ever make it into the school, that kind of thing. So we know that we need you to actually do this. And this is what sets you aside from all of your colleagues, is that you're able to actually take this theory and apply it. So you've had hands-on experience manipulating data, getting meaning and insight out of it, and you know the challenges that are involved. And so a lot of this is going to be about coding and understanding, as well as point and click tools. It's working out how these data is stored, what are the limitations of that, getting hands-on experience. Great, but we do know that with this kind of approach, we need to take you quite deep in each one to be able to learn how to apply them accurately. The third level that we would like you to obtain from your training is, of course, the goal of everything, which is to be able to evaluate and create and generate new models. We would like you to be more actively involved in problem solving, in creating new value, new services, new products for your company or your organization. And, you know, this is where the real value is. And we're very thrilled that we think we've been able to come up with training that addresses all three of these levels. We have theoretical training, we have practical training, we have a lot of projects that will give you the opportunity to generate and create new ideas. But what we're diving in with today is particularly that middle concept. How do we actually make sure that we are able to use and apply what we know? And so I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of something that is coming next month. This is our Analyst Competencies Framework. And this is what we drew up when we were thinking about what we wanted from training. We have those levels of learning, but we also have content as well that we want you to be able to understand. And we have progression. You know, we want to take you from a complete beginner in the field to a full member, and our full members really are able to take a leading role in a company. Full membership tells an employer that you are ready to be able to lead on new projects, negotiate compromises, and take a strong role. And so we imagine, well, we're taking you from the beginning where you're following instructions, really learning the basics of this. How do we progress you through those levels to make sure that you have the training that you need? And obviously the main part of it is going to be knowledge and analytic abilities. Actually, hands-on coding is what gives you the skills that will set you apart from your colleagues. It's like a doctor has to know about medicine, an analyst has to know how to analyze. So that's the bulk of our training comes in this area, but we also understand that if you're just a machine who's able to code and produce numbers, but with no understanding of what those numbers do for you, that's not terribly useful in the workplace. And so we also insist that you have training in governance and professionalism, and that makes up the next largest chunk of our training and support for you. And governance and professionalism covers all sorts of things, from ethics and legal and regulatory constraints to how do you interpret the models, those kinds of things. We have communication skills as well. Communication skills, we're looking at how do we actually share these insights and how do we share these incredibly technical subjects that we are working with colleagues who perhaps don't have the knowledge of what we're doing. How do we communicate that clearly and easily? And then, of course, leadership. You know, how do we start developing a leadership role? Because many of the future leadership roles will be for people who have training in analytics. And so, you know, we have broken these general aims down into descriptors of criteria that we would expect you to have at each level. And a lot of this is can-do statements, so things that you can do at each level of membership, but it's also things that you have had experience with. So we would like you, for example, by the time you get to full membership, to have had experience with very large data sets, much bigger than 500,000, that you will have been exposed to different data types, different ways of getting data, so that we are getting that broadness. Even though you perhaps may not be able to use this immediately in your job today, you have that training and you're ready for when these things do come along. And so this is our solution. This is our offering for knowledge and analytics, which is the fundamental of what we do. We have been working with DataCamp for a while now to come up with some training that we feel is aligned to career progression for our members. So we're thinking of a very structured approach to learning. And you can see that when you go into DataCamp, you can find us in custom tracks. This specific program of training that was designed for us. And you can see that it's organized into years. So we have year 1 training, year 2, year 3, year 4. And you may also notice that we have 2 different routes for you. You can either go through the IoA Knowledge Python Analyst route, which jumps straight into the coding from year 1, or you can go into the Business Analyst and R route, which takes you through spreadsheets and point and click tools, and then we get you into some of the coding. And we'll have a look, let's have a think about what these different tracks are. Why did we feel we needed 2 different tracks before we start to have a look at the actual coding environment? So the reason why we have 2 different tracks, 2 routes through our knowledge and analytical abilities membership training, is because we realize that there are kind of 2 sides to any data analytics project. There is the model build side, where you are creating a new model and you are building the code, collecting the data, you are trialing it and creating something that works, something that physically goes through the process and works. But then there is also the operational side. In other words, we then need you to take that model, do something with it so that it works in a business sense, so that it saves money, or it creates new value, or it generates a more positive customer journey experience, something in the company that improves what you are doing, that improves the way that you're working. And so that's more, this is, yes, it works. I can press a button and I get the number out that I would like to get. That's our model build approach. And then our operational approach is more, okay, so I've got this number, now what do I do with it? How do I make this work for me and my company? And so that's why we've created these 2 different routes. So track 1 is our Python analyst, and our Python analysts start Python coding from year 1. And because we get them starting from year 1, they're able to jump into machine learning really early. They're able to deal with things like geospatial data really early, and it's not easy to deal with that type of data. And by the time we take you through the 7 years of training, we're able to finish with distributed data sets, which is, you're linking to these data sets that are located around the world. You're dealing with unstructured data. So you're able to work with things like images, voice recordings, video recordings, text recordings. And we also get you working with Keras, with deep learning techniques. So by the time you finish, you really have had experience where the state of the art is today. Obviously, right, perhaps if you're looking at reaching this level in 7 years' time, we might have to change it by that point because that's the nature of our field. But right now, we will take you to where the state of the art is today, and we will do the same as soon as you get there with the later versions. And then track 2 is our business analyst with our route. And this is more for the operational side. So we start with spreadsheets, which is where many of you are comfortable, and particularly those of you who come to us from business will have lots of deep practice with spreadsheets already, I imagine. BI systems, business information systems, visualization tools like Tableau. We start you in your comfort zone, point and click technologies, where we're just dealing with some of the principles and the main ideas. But then we will move you on to analysis with R quite quickly. By year 4, I think we say, okay, it's time to start coding. And we go with the R language for that. And R is quite a nice entry-level language into coding if you're completely new. By the time you finish, you'll also be able to work with geospatial data. You'll have lots of work creating visualizations, beautiful visualizations. And we can get you to do a little bit of machine learning as well if you take that route. So you're getting some hands-on experience of working with the things that you're talking about, which I think is a valuable experience for everyone. One of the questions is, of course, do we have to code? And the answer is, well, yes, you do, I'm afraid. When we think about, the 1987, when Excel launched, honestly, most of us didn't even realize what Excel could do for many years. It was packaged in with Word. Word was the tool we really wanted. And then somebody had to train us to show us what exactly we could do with Excel. Once we realized what we could do with it, we liked it. And it was great. It was great for downloadable tables. So tables means that the data is organized in squares, and you can put it on your computer and analyze it there on your own personal computer. Nice visualizations, great insight, really useful. And it has been, a fantastic tool of the office since then. But in 2002, social media was born. We had a slight change in the way that you can upload things to the internet. You could put things on the internet with a click of a button, and it paved the way for social media. And immediately, we started realizing, well, look at all these new data types that we have. If we think about Facebook data, Instagram data, all of these, they are photographs, free text. They are videos, sometimes voice recordings. They are not going to fit in an Excel table. None of these data types will be able to be transported into an Excel table and analyzed there. And so we need alternatives. And again, if you're thinking, well, I'll just wait and the software will catch up, they'll eventually get there. I don't think they ever will. I don't think they will ever be able to keep up with the pace of change that we see in coding environments like R and Python. These are open source environments. What we mean by open source environments is that thousands and thousands of people are contributing to these coding environments in their free time. And when I say people, many of these are top researchers around the world. Many of them are going to be research centers, private research centers, and the pace of development is just phenomenal. And I don't think a software company with a handful of employees is ever going to manage to keep up with the pace of change in these open source environments. But the price you pay is that you've got to learn to code to use them. They're not going to be user friendly like a point and click piece of software. So that's why we say, actually, if you're going to stick with us, you're going to have to learn some coding of some kind. It's necessary. So let's think about our different routes. So our track 1 Python analyst, this is more for people who really are planning on lots of model building. We take you through from beginner. So we assume in year 1 that you have no experience working with Python. And we will take you straight into data analysis by year 2. And then you can see we're able to do some really exciting things. By year 4, we're working with machine learning, getting more hands-on with machine learning as we go through. And then by the time you enter into year 6 and 7, you're doing lots of projects and case studies with complicated data sets. So you're working with images, bees, I think we were photographs of bees and handwriting. You are working with free text, so you're doing sentiment analysis on text. You're working with music data as well. So we're getting you to have lots and lots of practice with lots of these different types of data. And then by year 7, we're also working with some of the deep learning algorithms, Keras, to be able to really practice some of the complicated stuff. So we're very thrilled with our Python track. And you can see there's a lot in it. So each of our year courses, we say it's about 36 hours, about 35, 36 hours per year, depends on the year that you would be expected to spend developing your knowledge and analytic abilities. Not much, not much really. And you can see here, we've got lots going on. In each year, we've got lots of things we can do with you. We've got all sorts of, text analysis, network analysis. We've got really exciting courses for you, and a lot of courses for you. About 36 hours each one of those. Track 2 are business analysts with R. So this is people who imagine themselves working more on the operational side of things. May I remind you that what we know is that both teams, if they can learn a little bit about each other's work, will work much more successfully than if they insist on working completely in isolation. So our business analysts, we start off in your comfort zone, which is Tableau, spreadsheets, data literacy, those kinds of things, Power BI tools, cloud computing, getting your data off the cloud. rather than from your machine where you've downloaded it. Year 3, you might notice, is the same for our business analysts with R as it is for our Python coders. We decided in year 3 that there were some other skills that everybody really needs. SQL in particular is one of the big ones. And SQL, such structured query language, just allows you to get data off of a remote data set. Not terribly exciting, but it is the foundation of some things that are exciting, like NoSQL, not only structured query language, unstructured query language, which can be really good for investigating more exciting data sets. GraphSQL, which is, again, really exciting at the moment. Once you've got the basics of SQL, you've got the principles for and the building blocks for some much more exciting things you can do later on. And we also decided that you really do need to have an understanding of Shell and Git. You have to have seen it, even if you don't work with it in the future. If you choose not to do it, Shell is the command, working with the command line and file management systems. Git is working with updates on files. How do you actually, when lots of you are working on the same data set, how do you agree to changes, making changes to that data set without things going horribly wrong? And so we felt that you should have a working knowledge of these. You should have at least seen these, even if you don't go on to use these in the future, so you can have sensible conversations. And you will, once you've done these courses, lots of future conversations will start to make more sense. And then we say from year 4, you've got to start getting into R. So we take you very slowly through R. It's a friendly language. And then we do get you by the end of year 6, we're starting to do things like machine learning, and we can get you with a little bit of image classification. So this is our non-Python route, and as you can see, again, we've got lots and lots of content in here. These are our non-coding courses at the beginning. We have lots of visualization, because R is great for that. And if you're operational side, you're going to want lots of lovely visualization. And then we tempt you in the later years with some of the more exciting things that you can do with it. Things like Bayesian data analysis. Once you learn that, it opens up a whole new field of potential analytics. So one of the questions we get asked, Python or R? I mean, both are fantastic. Both are really good and have many shared advantages. They can handle very large data sets. They can handle modern machine learning algorithms. They are open source, so they're constantly evolving and updating really quickly. I know, the pace of change on these, to be honest, is so fast that it's keeping up is the problem. Whereas with some of the other technologies, they're falling behind is the problem. With R, I think it's an easy language to go into. It works really well with relational data. So what this means is, as long as it can fit into a table, you can analyze it really well. It can handle very large data sets, which is a huge advantage. You can open huge data sets in R. It's really good for data wrangling. So if you want to reshape the data, if you want to move it around, join data, clean it up, R is incredibly good for that. And the visualization packages are also very good, very exciting. Just like Python, it's flexible, it's open source, and most of the machine learning algorithms are available on it quite quickly. And it was the language that dominated until about 2016. R dominated the field of data analysis. However, today, Python has very much taken over, and it dominates in 2022. Some of the benefits of Python, it's interpreted, which is a good thing. What this means is you can write a little bit of code, check it works, write a little bit of code, check it works. It's quite nice for learners to work with, because you don't end up with long stretches of code that there's an error somewhere and you don't know where. It's got vast libraries. It's got so much available. I remember that when DeepMind developed an algorithm called TensorFlow, incredibly sophisticated algorithm, incredibly exciting, because this was the first time we have ever seen an algorithm genuinely, unquestionably come up with a creative and new solution to a problem, which was something at the time we didn't think was possible, that it was beyond machines, that all they could do was repeat what they had learned from historical patterns. And it did it in there's a wonderful documentary on this where it was playing a game called Go, which is kind of a mixture of incredibly complex chess and psychology, like poker almost, if you know that game. Very challenging game. It beat the world Go champion, which was a very big deal in Asia. Fantastic documentary on this, available on YouTube. By the time I'd heard about this competition, and I heard about it quite quickly, it was already available on Python. Which was quite shocking, that it was so cutting edge, so revolutionary, and immediately there. And it's the same with things like XGBoost has been winning competitions on Kaggle. XGBoost is a type of random forest algorithm. You know, if whatever is cutting edge, it's usually there on Python really rapidly. And if you want to stay ahead, that's a huge advantage. So vast libraries, very updated libraries. It handles distributed data. So if we think about something like Facebook, there isn't one Facebook server. There'll be one in Asia, there'll be one in Europe, there'll be one in America, and it'll be updating constantly. And you need to be able to, if you want to get data, you need to be able to link to the server that's near you geographically, quite complex. Python can do that, R can't. It's compatible with other applications, so it's really, you know, easy to integrate that with other languages, like, for example, JSON. Or I was having a go with Google's OpenRefine data cleaning tool, and they have their own language, that they have their own coding language that you can use, but you can write a little code in Python that will automate the data cleaning, which is, again, you know, wonderful, very compatible. And this is why it's favored by engineers and computer scientists, because it works so well with other applications, other integrations. The growth is rapid, and it works very well with the Internet of Things, you know, for those reasons that I've said already. And so for that reason, in 2022, things have changed. R is not as dominant as it used to be, and Python is definitely the language that people are after. And I think it's fairly easy to learn as well. Honestly, if I was doing this, I would take both tracks because I think both languages are incredibly useful and both have useful skills. And then we do have these moments when we bring both tracks together to learn certain things or to practice certain things. And you can do it, you know, same task, but you can do it with whichever language you prefer. Year 3 is the big one, where we bring you all together to do the same thing. Okay, so let's jump out of this and have a look at the let's have a look at the website. Okay, let me go in, right, so let's say I'm going to go in on IoA global.org. There we go. So I'm at the website. Oh, I've already logged in. I logged in earlier. When you get to the website, you'll see the sign in here. You can log in. And then when you log in, this is what you'll see. So there are different places that you can go. Our more theoretical knowledge-based training is here in this section called CPD programs. And you can find courses here on governance, law, regulations, ethics, interpretation, theory, communications, you know, the art theory for visualizations, those kinds of things. And I would definitely keep up with those, because you know, we tend to introduce the algorithms there first, and then we will get you doing hands-on training. If you want to find the DataCamp content, then it's here in member resources. And you can see here we are, DataCamp. We've got lots of reports and case studies you can look at, but here is our DataCamp courses. This is just a little instruction if you haven't seen this webinar on what the different tracks are, just a little introduction to help you. Go to DataCamp. The first time you go there, you're going to have to log in, you're going to have to register. Make sure that you register with your IoA membership password, because that's what they're expecting. You do have to register separately with DataCamp, but make sure you go with your IoA password. So we come to learning and training. This is your dashboard where it will give you information about how you're doing. You can see I've been having a little play with some of these courses just to see what they look like. If you want to find our tracks, come out, the first place to start with is tracks. And you can see custom tracks. That's where our curated courses are kept. And unfortunately, for some reason, it doesn't sort alphabetically. I have no idea why. So when you come, they are going to be a little bit mixed up. That's a DataCamp thing, that they haven't got a sort button, not an IoA thing. So you'll just have to have a little look. You can see year 1 Python is here, year 1 knowledge and business analyst and knowledge business analyst and R is down here. Here's year 2 for that course. Not terribly logical, but you can find it. I'm confident you can find the right course. So completely new. Let's imagine you're completely new to all of this. Then you will go to one of the courses. Let's take one I'm not enrolled in. Let's take year 2 Python, read more. Okay, and you can see all of the topics that we're going to cover in this particular course. You can see they're divided into sections, so like 4-hour sections that you can complete, which is quite nice. You don't have to do the whole thing in one go. They've got convenient places to stop. And overall, each of the courses is around about 35 hours. When they say 4 hours, I think really what we're talking about is 4 hours if you're completely new to this and you have to do a lot of debugging and going back and checking the code and correcting the code. So 4 hours I think is the maximum. I've been having a little play with these, and it is much quicker to complete them if you're very confident of what you're doing, or if you get things right a lot. So 4 hours is the top level, I would say. So let's say, so you have a little look at this, and let's say you are going to, you want to enroll on this course. So let me sign myself up. Okay. And off I go. I'm ready to start. Now then, let me just show you what to expect when you go in. Start track. Okay, you can see very often there is a video that will give you an introduction. We've got transcripts below if you prefer to read rather than listen. I prefer reading. It's nice and quick. Once you finish with your video, you can go to Got It. You can move forwards. And you can see we have a divided screen. We've got a little bit of information here on the left, which will tell you what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then we've got a coding environment here on the right, which is a Python coding environment, and you can check your answers. Right, now then this first question is this first question is going to be just a theory question. When you have finished your answers, then we would go to submit answer, and it takes you on to the next question. You'll also see there are hints that you can take. Try to resist the hints if you can. The hints really are incredibly obvious. Once they give them to you, you should be absolutely fine. And bear in mind that it is a skill of the data analyst that they are able to persist, to keep going, to debug their own code. This is the skill you're learning, to get it wrong and then go back and try again, get it wrong, try again, get it wrong, try again. This is the correct path you should be on. So just because you've got it wrong first time, be patient, try and work it out before you actually turn to taking a hint. Or you might even, decide to go for the answers. You can, if you want, see the answers if you're really stuck. But we would prefer you if possible to have a little go and persist. Right, and then I had a look at, let me go back to my custom tracks. I was playing around with, I think I was playing around with the Python track. Yes. Yeah, so year 1 Python. I think I enrolled in that. Let me have a look. Okay, so the year one business analyst course starts with using Tableau, and it actually is the Tableau environment that it links to. And we can of course use Tableau for free in a trial process. So you can see, so this looks a little bit different, but it is the Tableau environment. The questions look a little different. The instructions are down here, the context is here. Here are the instructions on what you have to do. There's a video you can watch, there's a hint you can take. When you think you have done all of the stages of the instructions, you can click on next, and it will take you through to the next stage. So we've got it, each stage, we've got it very much staged. And this is Tableau that you're linking to. You're kind of going out of DataCamp and going into the Tableau API. So that's our business analyst with R. That's what to expect. Let's go back. Let's see if we can, let's have a little look at what this one looks like. Continue course. Let me see what the coding environment looks like here. Okay, and again, it has to link to the server. So this is the website showing here, and here it is linking to the server. So be patient. Sometimes it's a little slow, which it is here. You can see, again, it's a coding environment. When you have, you've got two screens here. Sometimes things are already loaded, so you might already have a data set loaded in there. You might already have some code written for you in here. You have to add your own extra code following the instructions down here. When you're ready, you can run the code and it will display down here in the Python shell, so you can check to see whether it's done what you were expecting it to do. If it hasn't, go back, try again, rewrite. See if you can research why you got it wrong. This is the skill of the coder. You can take a hint if you really, really give up. I would urge you to persist and try and sort it out yourself. When you feel that you're happy with your answer, you can submit answer and it will tell you whether you're right or wrong. So it's a very nice environment to learn in. Okay, so this is imagining that you are completely new to coding, that you want to go through from scratch, but you might be thinking, Claire, hang on a minute, I already know a lot of this. I don't need this. And I think that's quite common. If you are like me, and I don't think I'm unusual here, if you're not using it, you lose it. Particularly with coding, if it's been about 3 months since I looked at something, I forget the exact word or term that I need to use. And if that's the case with you, so if you think, actually, you know, I've already done a lot of this, I think I'm fine, then there are other things we can use here. We can go to assessments. So if you're thinking about taking, for example, the intermediate Python course, but you don't know whether you already know it, it would be a waste of your time, and you don't want to click through 4 hours of materials finding out that it's a waste of your time, which is completely understandable, then you can come to assessments, and we have some little checks here. So find the course that you're thinking of doing. So say you're thinking of Python programming. There's a little assessment, a little test that you can complete, and this will give you some feedback on whether or not the course would be useful to you, whether you appear to have the skills that are already covered and therefore don't need to worry, or if you do actually need to have a go at these things. And when you finish a course, I've got a feeling, I've been playing on 2 different accounts, and I've got a feeling I haven't completed any courses. Have I? So when you've, yes, I have. when you finish, again, so you don't lose it, which is very common, skill slip is going to happen if you're not using these things in your workplace on a daily basis. And bear in mind our goal of getting you to go broad and as well as deep. We have little practices that you can do, so you can refresh your skills, or we have little projects that you can do to apply your skills to make sure that you're not losing these valuable skills that you have. So those are our assessments, which I think are really good. Remember our third level of learning, where you're actually problem solving, you're applying, you're creating. We've got that covered here in the projects button. So here we have lots of projects that you can dive into at different levels. And you can see many of these are unguided or guided. And my advice to you would be, have a go. Try the unguided version. See if you can get it without having to look at the answers. And hopefully you'll discover actually you're really good at solving this particular problem. It will give you lots of hands-on experience you can put on your CV. And if you give up, if you find it's too hard, you can go back to the guided version later. We've got lots and lots of projects here that you can work on, you know, right the way from the beginners all the way through to our full members. Just bear in mind, if you do start dabbling in these, if you decide to go into these projects, and they are fun, some of them, for example, pull Twitter data off the internet, because Twitter data has a really nice open API and we can pull Twitter data. But if you're doing something like text analysis of Trump's tweets, you're going to see some truly offensive content in there, you know, so just a heads up. If you don't want to see it, don't go into it. Think before you go for the course. So those are the projects that we've got available for you. We've got practice sessions. So again, if you think you like the SQL, I do SQL, I remember SQL, I forget SQL, I have to go back and remember, you know, this is my journey with SQL, because I don't use it very often. I have to keep going back and refreshing my memory. And so we've got lots of practice here for you to do that, to ensure these skills don't disappear. Things like joining data, you might not have an awful lot of practice with. And then the other scenario, and this is again a really common one. So we have our custom tracks. We have the things that we have identified as being useful and in demand, and taking you from beginner all the way through to ensure that you have a really good coverage of the skills you need to be a data leader. But let's say you are employed by your company as a data analyst at a lower level, and then suddenly they decide they want somebody to pull data from the internet. They want you to be web page scraping or getting data from distributed data sets, things that are not on your CV, that you never lied about, that you were very honest on your CV, but unfortunately the person who's employing you doesn't understand what they're talking about enough to know that what they're asking you to do goes far beyond your current experience. And this is, I think, really common in our field, because the people who are employing us don't necessarily know what they're talking about. So we do actually have some career tracks. Let's say you were in that scenario, you would have to say to them, look, this was not on my CV. This was not a skill you employed me with. But if you can be patient, I can go away and learn data engineering, which is the skill of actually going to get data from places where it's difficult to get. And so we do have this option of alternative careers if you need it. And I think, is this where we have? No. Lots of you as well will have very specialist skills. For example, finance. You may well be very interested in working with finance data, which we don't cover in our all analysts tracks. Finance fundamentals, just, you know, particular areas of interest that you have. So again, if you feel that you have been asked to work with a skill that's not covered by our custom tracks, you may well find them here in the skills tracks or in the careers tracks. We have to get better at communicating to our employers, you know, that we can't do absolutely everything just because we have the title data analyst. It's a vast field with huge specializations. Okay, so I think that's most of what I wanted to show you on the DataCamp offering. Did I mention the competitions? Where are they? I've lost the competitions. I think we've also got some competitions in there as well. Oh, here we go. Competitions, which is also great if you're a university student and you want to show something on your CV, or you want to go for a promotion that's perhaps above your current skill set that you're demonstrating in your job. We've got lots of competitions coming up on a regular basis that you can enter, and what an amazing thing that would be to put on your CV if you were able to be a competition winner. And sometimes there are prizes. Sometimes the prizes is honor and glory and knowledge, I'm afraid. But you know, something to put on your CV could well be worth a lot of money to you in the future. Sometimes it's actual money that you can win. Wonderful. And sometimes it's things, swag. I'm not too sure what the swag is here. You can have a look. You can get yourself some nice things. And we are going to have our own challenges as well, actually, that we will start offering to make sure that you're getting all of these opportunities. So that's our DataCamp offering. And I think, you know, we've thought carefully about it, what we're doing with you. We've decided, you know, we want to make sure that you have the best opportunity for career advancement in what is a large, vast and complex field. Don't forget, while I'm here, that you have to understand data theory. You are not a machine. We don't want you just typing in code and producing a number. We want you to actually make sense of this, understand it, and know what the regulatory environment that you're operating is. Give excellent advice to your colleagues on all things about data. And so we have a full spectrum of other training as well that we expect you to undergo. Much less in terms of time commitment, because that reflects the balance of our careers. One of the big ones is governance and professionalism. So this is where we will talk you through what you are and aren't allowed to do legally. You can buy a Ferrari that can go at 110 miles an hour or faster, but you can't drive it down the road at that speed because there's a law for that. And it's the same with AI. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that it's within the law and you have the legal right to do it. So we need to make sure that you understand where the law is. And you know, we're operating globally, so it's a complex field. Lots of things about regulations, model evaluation. How do we actually understand what we're doing? What's going into the machine? How do we clean up the data? How do we make sure it's doing what we hope it will do? And then monitoring. How do we communicate what we've done? Share insights. How do we make our work transparent, contestable? All of these things that will build trust, respect and professionalism. And so you can see we've got a lot of content here. These courses tend to be much shorter. I think around about 10 to 15 hours, depending on how fast you go through. So they're a lot shorter than the coding courses. And you can see we've got things here on issues that you might be expected to be a font of wisdom on. Synthetic data, is it good? When is it good? When is it bad? When should you use it? How do you model causality? What's the optimal way of building an A/B testing environment? What should you know about the train test split? Schema design. How do you avoid dirty data in the future? What do you do if your data is very, very dirty? We've got some of the more traditional analyses, which sometimes we don't need a machine learning algorithm. Sometimes an old-fashioned one is perfect. So we talk you through some of those, some of the considerations, how to document and evidence our work, so that if we ever find ourselves defending ourselves in a court of law, we've got everything laid out and we've done everything just right. And then, of course, we've also got communication skills are essential. There was a big report in the UK, the Shadbolt report, that found that one of the biggest things holding back out analytics and just the field of computer science in general, of which analytics is a subset, was the failure to communicate, that people weren't being trained with the communication skills they needed to be able to interact with other colleagues at the level that they needed to interact with. So we've got, again, about 5 hours per year of training in communication, and this has got lots of nice stuff like visualization theory. This is all the art theory. How do we use color so that you create beautiful visualizations, honest visualizations? How do we communicate in these different teams where we've got people with different levels of knowledge? using different terminology, different goals, different ideas of what success looks like. How do we present ourselves? Presentation skills in meetings, in conferences, in negotiations, in difficult collaborations, those kinds of things. And then it's just some generally, you know, how do you get better? How do you deal with asking for help, getting help, dealing with criticism? Because unfortunately, you know, we're working in a very novel field. Things go wrong. At some point or other, we're going to have to deal with these things, to the point where we hope that when you finish with us, you'll have fantastic communication skills as well. So that is our training offering, and we're very excited about it. We had a lot of ambitions for this training, that it would tick a lot of boxes, and we're very thrilled that actually we think we've come up with something that does everything, that will give you a really good training and a really strong basis. And then when you find something you absolutely love, of course, you know, please do go deeper into it. But we will give you the opportunity to have a really good grounding and understanding of the key fundamentals of our field. If you have any questions about any of this, please do contact us at hello@ioaglobal.org, or write to us. You know, we're very happy to answer any questions, particularly as this is a very new launch, and we're in the process of explaining it and introducing it, and we'll be happy to take your feedback as well. Thank you very much for joining me, and good luck with your work and your future plans.